So, with no Lars and no Patrick this week, there's only one way we can begin this episode.
I already know I'm about to regret this.
Ah, British tar as a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. His energetic fist should be ready to resist a dictatorial word. Sing cat say. His nose should pant, and his lips should curl, his cheeks should flame, and his brow should furl, his bosom should heave, and his heart should glow, and his fist be ever ready for a knockdown blow.
And yes, if you're wondering why James is acting like a complete numpty and what on earth is bloody happening,
This is Treknicity, the British invasion. Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast where we explore the Star Trek multiverse one bloody marvelous mission at a time. I'm your host, James Mottershead.
I'm your host with the most, Cat Drake.
Wait, two hosts? Who agreed this, Cat?
No one, but Lars and Patrick aren't here, so they can't argue. We colonizing again, baby!
Yeah, so Lars and Patrick are having a break this week, guys. So we're here with the most Britishisms that we could possibly come up with, and all the bits in between. So I apologise for what you're about to witness in advance. But here goes. So captains, admirals, villains, diplomats, morally questionable scientists.
Star Trek needs gravitas.
Or somebody who can threaten the Federation while sounding Shakespearean.
They hire British. Trademark.
So we're here to talk about all the late and great British actors of Star Trek, and my God, is there a list of greats?
It really is. It is. If I didn't know any better, I'd think Gene Roddenberry himself was British. The amount he hired. Well, obviously, kind of the big question we have already straight out the gate is, why does Star Trek love British actors so much? I think the only other show that uses this many British actors is like Doctor Who.
No, true. I mean, when you think about all the great legendary actors in Star Trek, both heroes and villains, the Brits are in the lead, I would say. I mean, let's talk about obviously the most legendary of legends in terms of British actors in Star Trek, and that's Gene Simmons. No, I'm kidding. It's Patrick Stewart, obviously. So Pat Stew leads the charge with all things British, who plays a French captain, no less.
Even though he's from Yorkshire.
I mean, can you imagine what the Star Trek, the Next Generation intro would be like if he'd have actually done it in a Yorkshire accent? Space, final frontier. These are voyages, Starship, on Enterprise.
I knew you were about to do the French version.
But I think of all the people that you're going to play a French speaking Starfleet captain, it's going to be a Brit, right? Why wouldn't
It
it
would,
be a Brit?
yeah. Especially considering, like, when you consider British history itself, at multiple points in time, we have been taken over by both the Germans and the French. So it's kind of fitting that then later on, a French captain ends up sounding so British and being played by just average guy from Yorkshire. I mean, you know, when you really think about it, right? You take a look at any piece of sci-fi media. A lot of the time, their kind of intelligent characters are usually either British or American. For something like Star Trek, using people with a British accent, you can inherently hear, well, not inherently, but like you can hear, oh crap, these guys know what they're talking about. And they are able to use kind of borderline Shakespearean training to make this amazing sci-fi show sound so much more, I guess, thematically deeper and
Well,
more
I mean,
intelligent than if the whole cast was purely just Americans.
yeah, I mean, using a British accent to actually talk about technobabble just makes it so Shakespearean and so theatrical,
Exactly.
and intelligent. I think there's an element of gravitas and intelligence that an English accent actually brings to that kind of role. Let's press on because I mean Jean-Luc Picard obviously is the obvious one of Sir Patrick, and obviously
Yeah.
he's the absolute legend of Star Trek. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, and
He
I'm not
is.
biased just because he's a good old Brit. Um, but it was an interesting choice making the character French.
Yeah, that's. I mean, granted, even though Picard is French, Patrick plays it quite well, and that.
And we did eventually get the answer to that question 30 years later with Star Trek Picard, because we learned that obviously he'd grown up in France, but he was educated in England, and he never managed to shift the accent. I thought that was a good. It was a never ending plot hole, I think, within Next Generation as to why he suddenly had a British
Yeah.
accent.
Shout out Chateau Picard. Very delicious wine, from what I hear.
I don't think I've ever actually tried it. As much as I would love to actually spend £250 on a bottle of wine, I'm not quite there yet.
No, I have a friend who had bought a bottle by accident, and then they were like, "Oh." So taking a look at like just Star Trek as a whole, right? With the variety of episodes we have, the variety of films, just the whole variety in terms of series as well. When you really think about it, Trek is quite theater kid coded. Like a lot of a lot of theater kids are going to come along and be like, hmm, I like this. Um, so it's, you know, there are sections of Trek that can really kind of pull you in. And I mean, when you kind of take a look at previous history of the actors, you know, not only do we pull from some great American actors, we pull from up and coming American actors, but then we end up getting as well a lot of really well Shakespearean trained theatre actors who, you know, average theatre kid is going to see that and be like, wait a minute, I recognize them from Macbeth or A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's like pulling more people in, if that makes sense at all.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's attracted. I think ever since Patrick Stewart obviously came in with a massive Shakespearean theatre background, it then had the gravitas to then pull in more um, theatre background actors and actresses. You know, look at the episode Drumhead with Gene Simmons. It was just an absolute masterclass in theatrics. between them both, it's still one of the most iconic scenes. And I think the reason for that is because it was played off by two of the greatest British actors and actresses that have ever existed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you think about the kind of theatre and the Shakespeare training, Sir Patrick Stewart as Picard, you know, he has had some of the best speeches within Trek. You've got the Drumhead, Measure of a Man, Four Lights. It's, I mean, hell, Patrick Stewart being in the Next Generation was kind of the domino effect of them bringing in so many more amazing British actors. So I think that's a very nice. Je ne sais quoi.
So let's move on, because obviously nobody questioned it, because Patrick Stewart walks into a room and your brain immediately goes, that man understands astrophysics. Because the amount of command that a British accent will actually bring into a role, instant stage presence, instant believability. You are there, and you are becoming a massive fan of Tea Earl Grey hot.
You'll believe them even if they absolutely do not know anything about the subject. It's just that gravitas in the voice that makes you think, this man knows what he's talking about. Yes.
Well, moving on to the next topic, comparing obviously the greats between Captain Picard and Captain Kirk. So, what do you think are the key differences between Kirk and Picard?
Kirk is very calm, controlled, measured, whereas Kirk is very much, well, howdy doody. I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants. Shoot first, ask questions later, partner.
That took me off guard, Cat. Yeah, because we all know, you know, the infamous Captain Kirk is from the deep South America.
Oh, you know, it was the only like big kind of comparison thing I could make. So I was like, yeah, let's just make him from the deep South.
But I mean, seriously, I mean, in terms of the differences in leadership, I think an accent again is a really strong difference in comparison in the commanding presence of those both captains. So they've both got their amazing characteristics and their amazing leadership traits. But obviously, you've got the charisma of the Brit, and you've got the charisma of the American. But I think out of both captains, Picard is the one I've always resonated with the most. Not again, I'm not being biased just because he's a Brit. I just think he's a much more intelligent, rounded character. That is a true. He doesn't necessarily always lead from the front like Kirk does. You know, he's notoriously on the bridge every time Riker is going down with an away team, and he only gets the odd occasion where Riker actually lets him go down. And I think that's a different. That's the kind of key difference in the leadership, but it comes out in the way that they act the roles.
I think the other kind of comparison between them is, you know, Picard, because of the Britishness, he has kind of that dry, biting wit, whereas, you know, Kirk has that, I guess, lack of wit. I mean, he occasionally has his like witty moments, but at the same time, you know, if you were to have Kirk and Picard, right, deal with the exact same situation, 1-to-1, I can guarantee you Picard will always have the better speech and the better everything.
Yeah, I think if I was to sum it up in one line, I think just to take a phrase out of Picard's actual book here, is Kirk and the TOS era had their cowboy diplomacy, whereas Picard and TNG, it was more of an ambassadorial aristocrat level of diplomacy that went on throughout the course of TNG.
It's what's it called? It's so, I mean, obviously it's a newer show that's come out, so some Trekkies might not have seen it, but the way that Picard deals with things very similar to the war between the land and the sea, which is a Doctor Who spin-off that came out a while back. You know, it's very, they come to the table, they bring terms to each other, and then it's like, you know, so they come to you, they put terms on the table, and then it's a case of, right, we're willing to do X, Y, Z. And then obviously because of the Britishness, you're like, I totally trust the words of these people. And then, you know, the way that the Americans do it, there's always some kind of, I mean, at least in Trek, there's always some kind of background thing going on. They'll be like, yeah, we'll offer you this, this, and this. And then they won't elaborate. They won't try and negotiate. They'll say, right, these are the terms, accept them or get stuffed.
I mean,
so
I mean, you make a really valid point, and I think, you know, just going through our great sordid past of Great Britain, but I think there's a reason why we colonised 2/3 of the planet is because we, you know, we convinced everybody that we were here to do good things.
Exactly.
But I think that's what one of the positive traits of British culture, as well as accents. Not that we go around colonising everywhere.
Not anymore,
That's
not
our
anymore.
land. Sorry. I think is it exuberates trust, honesty, openness, command.
Yeah.
We are very, very authoritative in the way that we speak. Not necessarily us, because we're common as muck, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Yes.
Star Trek loves actors that can stand in a room and make technobabble sound like Hamlet.
Captain, if we fail to reroute the phase variants,
the quantum matrix will destabilize.
And because they sound like they've performed Macbeth, you're just like, he's right. Oh no.
So, next question.
Mhm.
Which Trek race feels like the most British?
Ooh. I mean, obviously we can't say the humans. That's an obvious cop out. I think for me, it'd either have to be the Vulcans or correct me if I'm wrong, the Andorans, the race
The
that Hemmer is.
Andorians.
The Andorians, yes. I think the Vulcans and the Andorians are like the most. I mean, obviously, we would have Vulcans as like the Southerners, the Andorians are the Northerners.
Okay, I can see that. Why would you say the Vulcans?
So the Vulcans, you know, they're very, especially like comparing them to Southerners, very calm, don't show emotion that well, usually in positions of power.
Yeah, because we don't know it to show emotion. We don't have emotions in Britain.
Yeah, I don't cry. I'm British. But no, the way that Vulcans handle things, it is very reminiscent of the way that the House of Lords happens over in the UK. So it's very similar. However, on the other side of it, the Andorians, right? Comparing them to the Northerners, the Andorians tend to end up getting kind of the jobs that the Vulcans don't want. Like,
well, they get
obviously,
butt hurt every. Yeah, I mean, they get a bit butt hurt if, you know, somebody stomps on their land, even though they've appropriated it. So it's a very Britishism kind of thing. You know,
exactly.
Thinking the planet between Vulcan and Andoria, for example.
Yeah.
You know, that's our Falkland Islands.
The other reason I compare the Vulcans to Southerners, some of these Southerners have like the worst haircuts known to man, and Vulcans, oh, some of the worst haircuts known to the Federation.
What? Just the bowl cut?
Just the bowl cut with the bangs, and it's like.
So are you trying to insinuate that Britain is just full of bowl cuts and mullets? Is that where this is going, Kat?
At this point, it pretty much is. Have you seen what Piccadilly...
isn't it?
Have you seen what it looks like in Piccadilly Gardens, like on a on a standard Saturday? It's just all mullets.
Well, I think in terms of those two races, pretty strong points. I think the two races I would choose, we're probably somewhere between Vulcan and Cardassian. I think again Cardassian because we like to go around and just stealing land from people that previously owned it and
you have a piece of land?
The resource.
Mine.
Yeah. But then we bail out.
We think it's too risky. We're just like, nope, not for me, bud.
Yeah. Hashtag Craigsit. So next question:
Craigsit.
Which captain?
Craigsit means Craigsit.
Which captain would survive a UK pub?
It depends. Are we talking about like just a standard pub, or are we talking a Weatherspoons?
Oh, okay. We went there. I think if it was going to be Weatherspoons, you're going to have to think long and hard about which delightful captain you want to put in that setting.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think the two captains that I think could survive a Weatherspoons, Jonathan Archer and Captain Pike.
I mean, I can certainly see Archer. Why do you think Pike?
So I think Pike is one of those kind of responsible guys. I think he only goes to Weatherspoons for the food. He'll have like he might have like a glass of wine or two whilst having some food at Spoons, and then the moment he's done, he'll just be like, okay, well, time to go, and he's just gonna get out. Whereas Archer, he is gonna get pissed up on tequila rosé shots, pictures, and then he's gonna finish off the night with like 2 pints of Diet Coke, and he'll be perfectly set.
Okay, fair. I can't disagree with that in all honesty. So let's move on to the next question. Which Starfleet officer definitely says, "Cheers, mate, off duty"? I know which two I would pick.
Who are you thinking?
That's the proxy Britain, Julian Bashir, and the not so proxy Britain, Chief Miles O'Brien. I think they would both say in some way, shape, or form, "Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate."
I think for me, I think it'd potentially be Bradwood Boimler and Laan Noonien Singh.
Laan, I can see why Boimler.
Well, here's the thing. Bradwood obsesses with, the glory days of the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, there are quite a few British members of fleet from the glory days. So Chief Miles O'Brien, Julian Bashir, Picard, Deanna Troi, all sorts. And I think he will probably study that and think, oh, that's a nice little phrase. I should start using that and bring it back. Yay.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think the obvious other one would be Lieutenant Reed, because obviously he's the most British of British security officers anybody has ever witnessed in all of Star Trek.
If Reed wasn't in the fleet, I'd think he was a bouncer at a pub.
Yeah, I mean he's a miserable bugger who doesn't like to show emotion, but he's awfully polite. He's very polite.
Like, he could be having the worst day possible, but he'll always make sure to be super polite. And I think that is what makes him like the most British officer there.
Yeah, I mean, he almost verged at points where in front of. I mean, don't get me wrong. He didn't take any shit. so you're gonna have to bleep that out. He didn't take any crap, but it's almost like he got to the point where he'd be saying to an enemy race, "Apologies, sir, but I'm gonna have to shoot you now."
I mean, you know what? You're right. Enterprise genuinely had the Royal Navy put in space energy sometimes, especially with Reed being there. So, we actually consulted a British expert for this episode.
Yes, the most British man we know.
Also a massive Trekkie.
Hello, yes, I'm here to confirm that Jean-Luc Picard ordering Earl Grey is the most realistic thing in Star Trek. Because if you put a British person in command of a starship for 7 years, they will develop an emotionally unhealthy relationship with tea. People think the Enterprise ran on antimatter. No, it ran on caffeine. Dry understatement. And the quiet fear of disappointing your crew during lunch breaks. Picard's ready room is not a command centre, it's a tea sanctuary. And honestly, that's why the Borg lost. Not because of tactics, because you cannot assimilate someone who has already scheduled emotional stability around a hot beverage. Let me tell you, Janeway is worse. Janeway doesn't drink coffee like a choice. She drinks it like a legally mandated coping mechanism. Sisko drinks like a man who has accepted violence as part of his morning routine. And honestly, Archer drinks like he just found out he's late for a PTA meeting in space. Tea and coffee in Star Trek are not drinks, they're personality traits.
Thank you very much, Henry West, for that marvellous rendition. I feel like we should rename him Colonel David Attenborough after that.
So, in the Star Trek thing that me and him are working on, he's actually Admiral West.
Follow him into battle anywhere. Thank you very much, Henry. So, moving on, let's talk about the next great British actress of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Marina Sirtis. She might have hot dropped the D, but she's still from good old Blighty. And like the woman driver that she is, typical British woman driver, she crashes the ship. I'm not sure we should keep that in, actually.
No, keep it in. Keep it in. Keep it in. So obviously, yes, we do have kind of the very obvious point of Marina Sirtis hid her actual accent during the whole making of,
which was backwards, right? I mean, it was backwards. She had a bit of a Cockney accent. Yeah, it was a bit harsh. I guess the reality was in the background behind it was I think the producers thought that American viewers wouldn't be able to actually properly understand that. I think that's the actual background behind the reason why she had this weird kind of Greek-esque accent, which then slowly morphed from Greek to Cockney.
Yeah,
which was just a natural segue, obviously.
Apparently, that is just the natural progression of things. If you start off Greek, you're going to turn Cockney.
But yeah, no. I mean, Marina Sirtis is an absolutely brilliant actress, and she's got an amazing sense of humour. And it started, I think, once the producers gave her a bit more of the rein in the later seasons, you could see that coming out. And obviously, the voice was much more natural in the later seasons as it came on, and I was so grateful for that.
I think the way that she went from the Greek to Cockney as well, it probably made it easier on her to be able to convey the emotions of the character during the scenes. Whereas if she's trying to put on this accent the whole time, it's like a whole mental ball game of like, right, so I have to sound like this, and then I have to I have to make sure that they can see that I'm feeling this, and then it's like Blair and Blair and Blair, and it's like, oh goodness, that is not good.
I mean, the one thing I actually resent from Star Trek for what they actually put Marina Sirtis through, because not only did she hot drop the D, she crashed the E. I mean, she's going down in history as crushing both enterprises that she was at the helm for, and that's not a nice thing to walk away from. And it was
No.
they did her dirty, I think, in Nemesis by doing that.
I mean, to be fair, any crash landing you can walk away from is a good landing.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah, 100%.
But no, she is really great. Do you want to? I think another kind of really funny bit, Bashir, right? He is the most aggressively British character that we have, despite being genetically engineered. So it's not even confirmed what his actual nationality is. So we have no clue. And I think the fact that that somehow his genetic engineering has decided, yes,
Yes, we're going to make you British.
Make that little officer British.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that they actually made a British character genetically engineered to be super intelligent. I mean, it's just a natural thing that us Brits go through, right? Is we all get genetically modified at birth and then become instantly intelligent. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I was genetically modified at birth. Why do you think my hair's pink?
Okay, so moving on. Why British villains in Trek are terrifying. So let's talk about some of the obvious ones. So we've got David Warner as one of the greatest British villains in Next Generation as Gul Madred. So that scene, that infamous scene of how many lights you see. It's the most sinister thing you could possibly ask a question to a Brit. How many lights do you see?
Someone came up to me on a night out and was like, how many lights do you see? I'd be like,
just run.
Run. I would run away because I would run away so quick because I'd be like, I am not trying to get taken today. I'm not trying to get mentally tortured. No, thank you. I am going to go home, have a fat, greasy kebab, and go to bed. I do not want to deal with your light games today, mister.
Well, ironically, if I had £1 for every time somebody asked me the question, how many lights you see, I would have £5.
There's only 4 lights.
But I have £5, Cat.
There's only £4.
So moving on. So let's talk about another one. So Jean Simmons again is another great, even though she wasn't actually she was a good person. She was a Starfleet admiral, even though notoriously all the way through the Next Generation, every single admiral that came into the show was doing the dirty somewhere. They were all massively corrupt. It was like, is there any good Starfleet admirals left in the Next Gen? But Nora Sati obviously was a retired admiral that came back to do the investigation after somebody sabotaged the warp core and stole the plans for their dilithium matrix, and then got instantly paranoid. So again, I know we've already kind of touched upon it from the drumhead, but it is just such a classic, iconic scene. And the way 2 British actors can do that in terms of playing off one another, and it's just pure dialogue, just staring eye to eye, pure dialogue, and it just cuts every single moment. It's just beautiful to see.
It is a beautiful that back and forth, that kind of almost too calm repertoire between them. It's like, we're about to either see these 2 become friends, or it's about to be the end of the world. And it's just like genuinely, it is so great though.
The next one I can think of really from a great British standpoint is Malcolm McDowell. Let's talk about Soren in Generations.
You know what? Soren in Generations, I think he was played quite well. to be honest.
I mean,
Especially
it will go down as probably one of the most. It's really hard to explain, but it's so calm but sinister at the same time.
yeah,
They say time is fire in which we burn.
exactly. It's hearing him say such horrible things with such a calm voice. It's like at first you hear it and you're like, oh, this is gonna sound amazing, and then he starts talking and it's completely gut wrenching. You hear that, you hear him talking, and you're just like, oh no, oh no, and it's almost like being psychologically tortured by him
Whilst also
through the screen.
simultaneously getting a university lecture.
Exactly.
He
I
is just
mean,
brilliant. I mean,
he is.
it's still up there from. I mean, I know it's not everybody's favorite, but Generations is one of my favorites.
Mm.
I think the portrayal between two great British actors. It's such a powerful thing to see on the screen.
Is especially, I mean, the two of them playing off of each other. It's kind of that. It's a wonderful example of how calm disappointment is always more powerful within the mind than someone just screaming evil.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? British Star Trek villains never feel cartoon evil.
No, they don't. They feel like disappointed uni professors.
Yeah, exactly. So Malcolm McDowell destroys the solar system while sounding mildly inconvenienced.
It's insane. And then, you've got Tom Hardy somehow making evil Picard clone devastating, but also genuinely tragic.
Which on paper sounds genuinely the dumbest thing ever imaginable.
It
and
does.
To a lot of fans, it was. It was.
And it sounded like Star Trek had just taken something, like some fan fiction that someone had sent in and just been like, you know what? Use it.
But somehow they pull it off because British actors treat villains like broken people instead of mustache twirlers.
Yep. No, you are very correct on that.
So Henry explained this perfectly earlier, actually.
And right, because American villains want to conquer the world, British villains want you to understand why you personally disappoint them. That right there is the big difference. A Hollywood villain will say, I will destroy Earth. A British Star Trek villain will say, I don't think you've considered the consequences of your actions. And I find that deeply upsetting. I mean, Malcolm McDowell in Generations is a perfect example. That man is dismantling a solar system with the emotional tone of a man explaining why your coursework was late. No shouting, no theatrics, just quiet, devastating disappointment. And that is far more terrifying if you ask me. Because you can argue with anger. You can't argue with someone who has already decided you are beneath discussion. Even the so-called evil British characters in Trek rarely see themselves as evil. They're always rationalists, reformers, correctors of the other's incompetence. And ultimately, that's why they work so well. They're not chaos, they're certainty. And certainty is always more dangerous than rage.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Henry.
Yeah. Thank you, Admiral West.
So, next question. Which
Yes.
Star Trek actor could read a Tesco receipt dramatically? And why is that Patrick Stewart?
Okay. You think Patrick Stewart? Okay. Right. No, I think out of all of the ones we have had, like all of the actors we have had so far in the series, I think just general actors not like specifically British. I think because of the way that Kirk talks, I think Kirk would accidentally make a Tesco receipt sound dramatic.
Oh, go on, give us an example, Kat. You can do it.
One meal deal consisting
Trump
of
and Kirk, but
sorry. Well, no, it's like one meal deal consisting of one ham and cheese sandwich, one salt and vinegar Walker's crisps, one Rubicon mango. Total £4, 25 pence.
you just read it off your today's lunch list.
No, I would never get something that basic on a meal deal. I always get I always get southern fried chicken pasta.
Classic. Anyway, before this becomes Tesco-nicity, let's press on. So,
Yes, we should.
David Warner gaslighting Picard with those 5 lights. We've already kind of discussed that, I think, to death at this point. So we'll move on to the next point. Trek using British actors whenever they need intellectual menace. That's the point.
Do you know what I genuinely think? I think originally when Gene Roddenberry was still alive and in charge, God rest his soul, I think that he probably just had Broadway on speed. Not Broadway. He had just like no, because Broadway's US. What's the West End?
The Royal Shakespearean what? Oh,
yeah,
West
the Royal
End.
Shakespearean Company or the West End.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had both of those on speed dial. So when it comes to things and he wants like scary but amazing villains, he's just like, hello. Yes, I would like to hire one of your finest British actors. Yes.
Finest British villains. It's just
One
a
of
British
your finest
villains
British villains. I'm willing to pay anything. I'll go above asking price. They just get them, and it's like, I think the way that they managed to get all of them so quickly, so well, and the fact that, you know, some of the people that were brought in, like obviously we have some British actors who kind of become recurring, but they play different villains every time. But even still, that kind of direct like connection and connotation, it's something about it is almost like now when you see a villain in Trek, you kind of see them and you're like, right, they're probably going to be British.
Yeah. Because nobody delivers moral superiority like the good old Brits, right?
Exactly. Nobody does. But the other thing is, like, you know, I think, personal opinion here, so don't shoot me. I think Starfleet Academy's villain would have been a lot greater if they hadn't cast Pig Vomit. Sorry, Paul Giamatti.
That was a weird segue, Kat, but go on.
No, so you know, we're talking villains, right? And I think genuinely that the villain of New Sprague would have been played better by a British person.
Who?
Ooh, now there are 3 potential actors that come to mind for this. Peter Capaldi.
I mean, if he played the character out of the thick of it, and just go around calling Nala Archaean Omnishambles, I could get on board with that. Who's your next one?
Robert Arameo. He's a Scottish actor, but he is also quite good.
So niche, so that's a no. What's your third?
The third one that I could think of, like off the top of my head, Ben Whishaw. He's the guy who plays Q in the Daniel Craig Bond movies, and he also played Paddington.
Okay, yeah. As a villain,
I think he could do it. I think he could do it.
I mean, it'd be like I mean, you can't have Paddington Bear playing News Bracker. That just doesn't compute.
You could. You could.
No.
No, he's
No,
a
I'm not
lot
having
more
a cat.
devastating as Q in the Bond films.
Yeah, 100%. But he's typecasted now as a good guy. He played Paddington Bear, for God's sake.
For 3 movies.
Yes. But he literally said on the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, "Thank you for everything, ma'am." You can't have that guy playing a villain. It just doesn't work.
I think it would. I think it'd work.
Well, on that note, I think we should wrap up.
We should. We most definitely should.
And I think there's only one way that we can do this really for this episode, right, Kat?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm really sure. We're going to wrap this up with you, Kat.
You're going to wrap this up with me? Okay. I am the very model of a modern major general. I've information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the fights historical and the king's categorical. I've forgotten the rest of it.
Well, this is how podcasts get cancelled, Kat.
Bold of you to assume we had any credibility to begin with. So, that's it for our good old Blighty episode. Did we get it right? Miss anything? Do you agree? Disagree? Let us know.
And thank you for joining us here on Treknicity, where we wander through the bloody marvellous Star Trek multiverse. I'm your host, James.
And I'm your other host, Kat.
Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Treknicity.com, as well as visiting all of our socials listed here, or find us on your favourite podcast service, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. If you have ideas for future episode subjects, please feel free to drop a comment in this video or DM us on any of our social media accounts.
And as always, one should always rock out with one's Spock out. See you later,
Toodle pip.
everybody.